Why did George Washington have so many sad Christmases? Hi, Founder fans, Jason here, and today we're going to talk about Christmas, but while researching stories for Christmas, I happened upon several sad Washington Christmas stories. Now, I know today is a festive, joyous occasion, and I should be celebrating and being happy, and I am, and I have. But this is what I was researching, and this is what I came across. So this is what we're going to talk about. Hate to be a downer. I tell you what, at the end, if you stay with me, I am going to tell you what I think is an hilarious George Washington Christmas story. So, stick around for that. But, let's get started. When George Washington was just 8 years old, his house burned down on Christmas. I guess better said his father's house burned down on Christmas, but this was an early experience for the young man, can't even call him that, for the child, George Washington. One would assume it was fairly traumatizing, although, fires were, I don't want to say more common at the time, but definitely more devastating. There was no fire department coming. If your house caught fire, it was burning down. So, years go by, and 8-year-old George Washington becomes 19-year-old George Washington, and he accompanies his older brother Lawrence, who was suffering from tuberculosis. He accompanies him to the Bahamas. And in the Caribbean, the doctors had sent him there because they thought the nice air, as I've mentioned several times on this channel, the nice air would clear him up and hopefully get rid of the disease. We know in hindsight it did not, and Lawrence passed away, and that definitely was dramatic for even a 19-year-old George Washington. Now, I bring this up because George Washington was on a boat sailing back from the Caribbean when it was Christmas. That's how he spent his 19th Christmas. So, it's not the saddest story because apparently they ate a fine goose and toasted to their acquaintances who were not present. But, they'd get home and his brother would die. So, whoopsie daisy, not so pleasant. So years and decades go by after this, and during the French and Indian War, and then of course during the American Revolution, Washington spends a lot of Christmases not home, on the battlefield or in a tent, writing letters home, or actually, from my research, mostly writing letters about work, because, he was studious and such. But in 1781, the Continental Army has a victory at Yorktown, and the British are captured in October. And this is a momentous occasion. And 2 months later, they're celebrating Christmas. They're not home yet, but Martha's around, and George and Martha Washington, whom he married, would celebrate at Robert Morris's house in Philadelphia. Unfortunately, while this should be the best Christmas, Martha's son and George's stepson, John Parke Custis, caught fever and died during and just after the Battle of Yorktown. So it was the first Christmas they celebrated after the passing of one of their children. Again, real sad. Now, these are only a handful of George Washington lived to be a fairly old age, 67, I believe, 67. I'm doing the math not well off the top of my head. And he, of course, had many fun Christmases. So just to lighten up the mood a little bit, I will tell you that it was much more common back then to celebrate all 12 days of Christmas, like the song, on the 12th day of Christmas. Most of us don't celebrate 12 days anymore. They used to. And actually, back when Washington and Martha got married, it was on the 12th day of Christmas. And that's fun, and that's uplifting, but that is not the fun story I'm going to tell you today. No, the fun story is, in 1787, just after the Constitution was signed, but before it was ratified, Washington signed the document and went back home, and then Christmas came around, and he hired someone to bring something mystical that you didn't get in America at the time. He hired someone to bring a camel to Mount Vernon so that they could look at it. I couldn't find any notes that they wrote on it. It seems like they hired someone just to come bring a camel and they could be like, that's cool, and go back inside. Because apparently, when you were filthy rich 200 plus years ago, that's what you did. I think that's hilarious. Hopefully you agree with me. We're going to keep this video short because it's Christmas and you have family to go see. But thank you so much. If you have the time, please hit like on the bottom there. And I will say adieu. Happy holidays to you and yours. And thank you so much for watching.